Okay, Jesse's back. Very quickly, a follow-up update, yada yada. This is my spreadsheet I used in the last video that was very, very long-winded. We talked about a lot of stuff. We rambled and ranted, and I made some good points and some bad points, and I wanted to clarify. So first of all, I should just replace this with slams, because I really am talking more about slams than anything else. It's not fair for me to be so overly critical of skills like double strike and, I don't know, Boneshatter and cleave and skills that I honestly don't play that much. I really just play skills with the slam tag, like Sunder, especially Earthshatter. I played Earthshatter a lot. And I'm going to mention Earthshatter note. Earthshatter note. So we replaced this stuff with slams. And I wanted to show you something that I thought was funny, that was worth mentioning, because it's just like, it's a comedy of errors. So two-handed maces are the slams weapon type, for better or worse. You know, they are the weapon type that has this special type of heist base. It's an alternate base, basically, that you can get from heist. And it has the war cries exert an additional attack. Ergo, they are sort of the de facto slams weapon. And things like Tidebreaker, some of the unique two-handed maces, they're sort of catered to slams in some ways. So these numbers are strictly worse than the numbers of the other two-handed weapon classes, especially axes. So if you want to use something like Shockwave, you have to just suck it up and deal less damage. And we'll look at two-handed war staves as well. But this is especially apparent in leveling and in the campaign. So I noticed this on stream myself, actually, on accident. I'll even show you the character. So I have been naming all my characters some variant of slams need accuracy, because I think that that's an interesting conceptual way to make slams feel better. But here it is. So this is the example that's like a practical example. If you use the vendor recipe to get a phys damage two-handed weapon, which is pretty common if you're leveling in the campaign and trying to zoom and go fast. Sometimes you don't have a good weapon, so you need to use the vendor recipe to get one. This rolled 56%, so I put a little quality on it to try to make it a little... This is like the one that I had earlier. So you'll notice that, and you can kind of see it because my screen is blocking it, but requires level 37 is the Jasper Chopper, so you can get it basically like in Act 5, I think, is where level 37 is, or even the end of Act 4. Act 4. This is the Steelhead, which is requires level 44, so this is something that you would get in Act 6. And so this is like a more... You've gone further, you've progressed further. This is the kind of item that would now show up in your filter if you're just going based on the most up-to-date weapon of your weapon class. But what's interesting is that this Jasper Chopper basically is the exact same damage per second. In fact, it's a little more damage, but I think, you know, that might be because the percentage is a little bit more on the phys roll here, but basically the DPS is comparable, even though the weapon was found like 10 levels earlier, you know, 5, 6, 7 levels earlier. And in the campaign, where every upgrade for a melee and slams build is so important, every weapon upgrade is so critical and so important. It's why it's such a pain in the ass to level up with slams or with melee. is you have to keep upgrading your weapon, and your gear is so important compared to spells. And so I looked at the table and was like, okay, well, why is this the case? So I scrolled down. Jasper Chopper requires 100 strength. That's pretty high relative to other axes. 85.7 damage per second, just on like a base level on a character. Okay, cool. Well, let's go to a two-handed mace. What is the level 37 equivalent for a two-handed mace? Totemic Maul here, level 36, requires a lot more strength. Makes sense. 78.1. Okay, well, that's definitely a lot worse. Like 10% worse. Well, what about the Great Mallet? No, that's still not as good. Okay, what about the Steelhead? Oh, finally a two-handed mace that is equivalent in DPS to the Jasper Chopper. But you get it at level 44, and it requires 143 strength, 40 more strength requirement. And we're finally approaching the power level of the axe. Oh, wait a second. I forgot. These maces have implicits. 30% increased stun duration. Oh, see there. There you go. That is what pays for it. That's why maces are so good, is because of the fucking stun duration. I cannot even express how bad these fucking weapons are leveling up compared to the axe counterparts. It doesn't make any sense. It's just a 10% less damage. That you just deal less damage with a mace. Like, it doesn't matter if you have a fast attacking speed like Boneshatter, or if you're a slow slam build, you have to use these weapons as opposed to the alternatives. I think the war staves are a little bit more comparable, but war staves, there are not as many of them. They're harder to find, and you get upgrades less often. So war staff, let's look at the level 41. Yeah, war staff, that's a nice DPS right there. That's pretty freaking solid, but it's crit based. So that's a whole different puzzle you got to unpack. I'm not even going to fucking go there, actually. But I don't know. This is something I noticed in the campaign, and I was memeing around with this level up strategy and was trying to decide. I was trying to, like, let's see if accuracy nodes compare to resolute technique in the overall feel of leveling up through the campaign. They actually feel comparable, kind of comparable. And then you just, you're under the struggle bus as soon as you have to start using war cries. I need to spend my next 4 points in this cluster probably. I need to spend my next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points on this cluster. And then I can start using my Seismic Cry. And I heard some streamer mention that Earthshatter used to be like top of the meta. But I want to... A lot of things have been nerfed over the years in Path of Exile. A lot of things have had heydays, and then no, they're out of the meta. They're in the meta, they're out of the meta, they're in the meta, they're out of the meta. Well, Seismic Trap was in the meta for 4 years. Seismic Trap was supremely overpowered numerically for a very long time. And Earthshatter was around for like maybe 2 leagues, 3 leagues. And look at the change that they made. No longer has exerted attacks deal 30% more damage. So for those of you who did not play Earthshatter, the only reason that build was meta and was relatively comparable was, first of all, there were no Uber bosses back then. Searing Exarch takes a huge shit on Earthshatter today. Same with Eater of Worlds. So there were no Uber bosses back then. And second of all, you had 120% more multiplier. More multiplier. That's more than double damage if you're just treating it, as is, on a single Earthshatter attack. And then you have the 5 spikes. Now, I've played Earthshatter a lot. I used to league start it every single league. Now I'm going to probably do Sunder because Earthshatter just feels bad. But a 120% nerf from their more damage. Seismic Cry never got something like that. I mean, this is a straight up gutting of the build. And this happened in 3.15. Let's take a look at the date. So that was July of 2021. We're at the 2.5-year mark. I have no idea what's going to happen to Slams. I really don't. Don't know what they're going to do. If they do anything with we'll talk about Ancestor totems. This is the thing that every single creator is like mentioning. Like, oh, Ancestor totems, that is what they'll fix. That's what they're going to target. That is what they'll change. That will make all melee skills feel better. Well, what it will make feel better is Boneshatter and Glacial Hammer. Slams, well, it'll make them feel a little better. They already required a ton of setup. You already had to use a bunch of skills in order to do damage. So kind of just, you're like, okay, I guess I'll use a few less skills to do damage. It feels a little better. But compared to Shrapnel Ballista or like Artillery Ballista or whatever, all the Ballista skills, the big problem is that if you're about to crack open an Essence and you're about to kill a big, juicy, rare mob, something that requires more setup, maybe a curse or two in order to kill it, in order to bring it down, Ancestor totems do no damage. They do completely negligible damage. Ballistas, if you set up all your ballistas absolutely dunk on essence monsters. And I mean, you only get one Ancestor totem unless you're running the multiple totem setup, then you get two, but I don't think that there's any way you can compare the damage from those totems to the current level of ballista totems. So like, the parity is not just that all melee skills require the totems to even do comparable damage. It's also that the totems themselves don't do shit for you. They don't kill things for you. There used to be an Ancestor totem that was a Chieftain Ascendancy focused totem build that hasn't been around in 5 years. And they completely killed that with the Chieftain rework. So I don't know. I think that I'm very happy, more than happy, that the Ancestor totem rework is likely. Like, I'm thinking it's good. That's an overall positive thing. We're moving in the right direction, but the parity is still not close. And I also don't know if the attack speed fix is the only thing that you can fix either. Review of melee skill gems. We'll do this really quickly. I actually don't know what this will pull up. Let's look up skill gems. So, well, one of the things that I wanted to show you and compare was how incredibly busted Boneshatter is relative to the other skill gems. I've done this before on stream. Not that anybody watches my stream, but if you actually scroll through and you compare the damage number and then the more attack speed multiplier and then the flat added damage, and you go through and compare the skill gems one by one, like stuff like dual strike and double strike just get absolutely shit on by Boneshatter. So let me do attack. There's got to be a better way to do this. Sorry, bear with me. Not a support. Red. All right, this is a relatively good look. Not amazing, but decent. Earthshatter. Sure, we'll look at Earthshatter. We'll look at Boneshatter. And then we'll look at Sunder, which is Sunder is the latest and greatest because it received the most recent numerical buff. And everything is about power creep in this game. So, Earthshatter, you can't see this because of my face is in the way. We'll do this. Slam the ground, sending out rectangular fissures that deal area damage to enemies. Thrust a spike from the ground when they end. Warcries or other slam attacks performed by your allies players near the spike cause them to shatter. So that's Earth Shatter. That's the idea is you create fissures and then you shatter them. But unfortunately, Where's the buff nerf stuff? So in this patch, when they gutted Seismic Cry, and they had actually nerfed this before that, but when they gutted Seismic Cry, they gave a lot of things more damage, like 40% in this situation, but some skill gems got like 100%. It really increased the multiplier based on your weapon. And it is obviously far removed from the 120% more multiplier you can get from Seismic. But this is not as impactful as some of the other numerical changes. And we'll look at Sunder to show that really quick. Sunder had went from 220 to 275%, which is 55% more effectiveness of added damage. And then it went from 220 max from 275 max to 325 max, which is another 50% more damage, and it increased the damaging wave. None of the other melee skill and slam skills have received that kind of attention. Sunder received this kind of attention. None of the other ones did. I think Tectonic, also a trash skill gem. I don't know how. I mean, I cannot imagine some poor ignorant player trying to play slams and trying to play this piece of shit garbage skill gem. I'd feel so bad for them. I just feel bad for them. I feel guilty. Yeah. This had 155% base damage effectiveness of added damage increase in the patch where they gutted Seismic Cry. It's so bad. And so Sunder is the only slam skill gem that is even remotely playable. And it's the current, if you are going to try to level with slams, with Warcries, Sunder is basically your only option to even be remotely close to the other classes. And so Boneshatter, final note, basically that was just a quick talk about how slams bad lol. We'll even put this in here. Bad lol. Boneshatter. So Boneshatter was added in 3.15. It is actually added the same patch that they nerfed Seismic Cry, which is funny. They had to nerf it. Oh no, they didn't nerf it. They buffed it. But this is what I really wanted to talk about. All right, so Boneshatter has this flat added melee physical damage, attack physical damage, which you do not see in Tectonic, which you don't see in. Did I already get out of? Yeah, you do not see this in Sunder. You don't see this in Tectonic Slam, and you don't see it in Earthshatter either. I'm just going to double check that. Fact check. Yeah. So none of these skill gems have any flat added physical damage, which flat added physical damage, it cannot be understated how much extra damage that you get from this. What's insane is that if you removed this 158 to 238 added attack physical damage, you could remove this and this skill gem would still be better than every single one of the slam gems that I showed you by a huge margin, because this has a built-in more multiplier. 85% base attack speed. That's not nearly as bad as some of these other ones. 75% base on Sunder, 80% base Tech Slam, 80% base Earthshatter. Like, this has flat added attack physical damage and a built-in more multiplier. It blows my fucking mind. Blows my mind how people think there's any level of parity between these skill gems. It is insane. So that's my rant. The only playable skill gem is, if you're playing melee and you're not doing some weird projectile shit like Molten Strike or Lightning Strike, is Boneshatter. If you want to just do a physical skill, it's Boneshatter. The only even remotely unplayable build is Sunder if you are forcing yourself to play Warcries and Slams like I am. And I know that there's someone who's going to post, some smartass is going to post a strength stacker build that uses earthshatter, or they're going to post a Ben's Mage Blood earthshatter build. That was a berserker build that he played this past league. Okay, I know the builds exist, but it does not mean the builds are good, especially relative to the currency investment. Strength stacker is its own thing. It's its own beast. And I don't know why you wouldn't use, like, I don't know, smite or something. I can't, this is not what I'm referencing. What I'm referencing is like an SSF league start scenario. I'm not talking about end league. None of this has any association or effect on end league. What I'm talking about is the fact that whatever nerfs, buffs that people are predicting, slam builds are so far behind. They need a lot more help than the teeny tiny little fixes and updates that I think people are going to give them. So I guess I've said my piece at this point. It's been maybe a little bit more of a rant than I wanted. I do like this game. I know you all may think like, man, you're angry about this. I'm not. I actually love this game. And as I've said, you only criticize things that you love. You only really nitpick when you care. If I didn't care about this game, I wouldn't make this video. So we'll see what happens in a few days. I am very, very curious and interested, so we'll see. That's it from me. Goodbye.